Welcome to the SJ Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Thank you so much for joining the SG Child Show today. I am here with my guest, April, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation with her, finding relatability in conversations, sharing it, uniting the community with that kind of information and education is so important to me. And that's why I bring on wonderful guests that can do that for us all. Thank you so much, April, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. It's so nice to have you here. Let's get started with an introduction from you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you here today.
So, I am an occupational therapist by trade. I am a mom. I am creating with autism. When he graduated in 2020, and that was like when COVID came out, we had no transitioning. We got a piece of paper and that was it. And being an occupational therapist, my medium is geriatrics. And I was like, that's it. What do we do? There's no transition. So we went through this rigmarole of, okay, let's try college. And lo and behold, there are, supports for kids in college, but it's not autism supports. And not all colleges have that. And the colleges that do have it tack on fees to tuition. Yeah, right. And so, and the school he went to, Eastern Kentucky University, did not support him mentally. He tanked and down we went. And so we've been through rabbit holes. And he ended up with a $10,000 bill from the school. And I was so mad. I was so fired up. I was like, what can I do? What can I do so other parents don't have to do this? I'm like, this is ridiculous that there is no other transition. So I started this. And lo and behold, here's Adulting with Autism.
And that's the podcast, right?
It is a podcast.
Yes, I love it. And it's so important. I'm so glad you started something like this because it's a topic that is still being demystified, if you will, that autism exists in adults. Guess what? Late diagnosed adult autistic here. I can tell you, not only does it exist in adults, but I've obviously been autistic my entire life. So it also goes without notice and without being seen for many, many, many years. I think it either is obvious, as with my child and maybe your own. My child was diagnosed at 16 months. So it was a very early understanding of what we needed to perceive and change our ideas about. And we don't consider, because there are so many therapies for children for early intervention, school, to high school, sometimes even voc rehab a little bit out of high school. But then it's like nothing. Where do we get these adult services? Why don't we have these adult services? How are we going to start implementing these services for these adults, whether it's accommodating housing or accommodating, schooling, or especially employment? So many underemployed and unemployed autistic adults that could use their amazing talents in areas more than they're believed that they can. And it's so frustrating. And I'm so glad that you're helping give voice and rise to that.
It's just, and there's no unification. Every state is different. Some states have really great supports, and then there are states like my state in Kentucky, the supports for young adults is like nil. And I'm like, it's all or nothing. And that's not how it should be. It should be unified. Parents should have transition. I'm like, they got transition all the way through school. What makes you think they don't need transition
Yeah,
after high school?
absolutely. What type of accommodations would you provide if there were a services out there right now that you could go show up to? What would those look like? How can we put action towards these things?
Oh,
Loaded
if
question.
I I know it's a loaded question. It's such a loaded question. But, it really starts in high school. Why it start prepping them. You're going to, along with their peers, after high school, what is it that you like? What is it that you want to do? Do you know? If you don't know, let's figure it out. And it's prepping the parents as well. Like, listen, your kid is not going to be a kid forever. You can't talk to them like a kid. Yes, they have autism, but they are still going to be an adult. You can't treat them as a kid when they turn 18. They know they're going to be an adult. So it's a it's like almost having a transition program for the parent and their kid, because that communication can get real hairy. And
Mm,
where are they going to live, and do they need supports, and there's a lot to go by, and parents don't know all of these things. It's not something they're taught. They're taught everything they may need during the school years, but I mean, are they going to need housing? Do they need supervision? Can they cook? Can they do these things on their own? Can they drive? And the housing situation is not ideal. Like, listen, I get that they can have housing, but they don't need housing with people that are in their 50s, 60s. They
yeah.
need they need housing for their peer age so they can
Yeah.
socialize.
Mm,
They want to
I
be with their peers.
yeah.
I don't think when the structures, came up, they really thought about this. And as we're learning more and more and more about autism, things have changed, but the structure has not. And it's
Mm.
time for them to catch up.
It certainly is. And whether you have to do that, you know, as a parent, if you're listening, a teacher, a legislator who I hope will be able to make the most change and put in the most effect, at least for this community. But it's so important. Here in Utah, there are, live-in independent facilities. But just because there's one facility that's an independent living facility, that doesn't like give the needs for all of the independent living. Or maybe, like you said, maybe there are more supports needed. And sometimes when we look into group home settings, I know for my own personal experience, I've never worked or been to one other than, like a senior care clinic. But when my husband was growing up, he was raised in group homes and he worked in group homes later for disabled adults. And his ideas and recollections and memories of those aren't anywhere he would ever put our son to go live. And it's hard because, of course, every family is so unique and so individual, and everyone has to make their own decision based on their family values. So I would never want anyone to take what I'm saying as like put it onto them or vice versa, because you have to be strong enough within yourself to know what's best for your child. And you have to live with conviction with that, don't you? And it same comes to work and where you're going to provide opportunities for work. Yeah, that's great that they can go bag at the grocery store. But, you know, some people can do so much more and they have these talents and this way of thinking and you know, individual kind of passions that could be utilized. And we should have some more types of counselors, employment counselors, I don't know what to call them, that look for those things, that look for those passions in autistic adults, and then find opportunities based on those so that you can push them to be their very best, because that's what we should do for every human. I don't think otherwise.
I interviewed another podcaster, Michael McGrush, who said that in order for us to kind of think outside the box, we have to destroy the structure, because the structure is it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
For unique individuals. Like autistic young people may not want to do meetings. They don't need meetings. Just tell them what to do and they can
Yeah,
do
give
it
them a
from
list.
home.
Yep.
They don't care about, some of them may not care about Jane's like birthday or baby shower. They could care less. And it's not that they are being rude about it. It's just it's not what they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not their thing. They're not being rude. It's just not their thing. But they can do the job and they can do the job well. And don't fault them
And
for it.
we need to have more employers trained for that, trained or hiring whatever they are, the hiring people trained for seeing what accommodations are needed. And I guess
Right.
that comes in where you and I are, you know, out there advocating for our child, for our, mine son is 14. He's almost there. It's going to fly by and he's going to be there in this adult space that I'm not going to know how to manage. And I'm going to have to learn as I go. And I'm going to reach out to April and say, oh my gosh, here I am. I'm going to be listening to the Adulting with Autism podcast so that I can figure out what my next steps can be and get options and resources. So, yeah, thank you so much for creating a space for people to find resources and education.
And it's so strange. I set it out for like explicitly for parents, but my biggest audience is the young people from 23 to 35.
Hmm.
And it's so I'm like, you guys are listening? I thought it would be your parents. But they're wanting to be independent. They want the mental health. They want to be their best. They want to move forward. And it's time that people around their world understand they want to contribute
Mm,
to make society
absolutely.
better.
Mm.
Like, had I known, like, I didn't even know this program existed. It's called the College Internship Program, and it's been around for like 23 years, where um, it's a transitional program for autistic people that teach them either they can do a career route or they can do the college route and learn how to do independence. Had no idea that existed. My kiddo could have gone right after 18. And I'm just now finding this out, and he's 22 now. And I was like,
Yeah.
why is this not something of an option for parents?
like flashing on a billboard,
Right.
literally.
I'm like, why? This should be options
Yeah.
for parents right out the gate. Just, okay, here are your options. Here's this. Here's the routes we can go. This shit, just like you would do their peers about college options and everything else. They deserve the same.
Mm,
And so do their
absolutely.
parents. That's my soapbox.
I love it. There's a tiny bit of a delay, so I didn't want to cut you off if I I wanted to let you finish, so I didn't butt in. But yeah, I really I think that now that I've been more interested and curious about what's ahead, I find myself looking and seeking out these connections with these work training companies, with these all of these different individuals throughout the United States and even across the world, and I'm finding out like that's what everybody needs, is to be seen and to be heard, because the information is there and nobody can see it. No, why can't we make it a little bit easier? Like maybe the government can make just like an autism resources page and everyone can go and put stuff there, but that's hard too, because I mean you want everything to be vet properly so that it's ran professionally. Yeah, so slow down my roll there, but it's so tricky because we want the information there. I love groups. I think groups are really important and special. I think that they should be extremely well moderated and looked after on social media. But I think it's a great place for people to come and find resources and information. And I think that, you know, as hope for parents, like find those kinds of resources, ask questions. And I think that that's something that a lot of parents maybe forget, that they are going through their day doing the routine and all of a sudden 5 years have passed and now here I am. What am I supposed to do now?
And
Start asking those questions. Yeah.
yeah, and start asking early because
Mm.
like that's one thing I noticed is that you see all these groups when they're little and it carries them into high school and you don't see these groups so much when they're in high school because then you start to do the fun stuff in high school where it's prom and homecoming and this and that. And then all of a sudden, 4 years go by and it's quick. And then now what?
Mm-hmm.
Because those high school years, I promise you, go so fast. And then you're struggling because you, and I think it's like, I don't know if it's this thing with being a parent in high school and you think it's going to be figured out by then, by the end, it's not. I think I thought that. I think I was like, okay, it'll all be figured out when he graduated. And then he graduated, and I'm like, what? We still haven't figured this out. Holy crap.
Yeah.
No, I'm thinking another OT could figure this out. I'm like, all OTs in the world, and we have not figured this out yet. You mean I got to be the one to start? Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm autistic. I'm not that organized. Time management is not my thing, people. And you're wanting me to start this. Okay.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It
But,
I couldn't relate more to that, believe me. Oh, goodness.
but I encourage parents that have younger kids that kind of like stay in those kid groups fall away. Start looking for the older adult groups so you have those resources
Mm,
because you're going to need them. It's
yeah,
it is detrimental of the information you're going to need.
absolutely. Yeah, and what do you think as a parent of an adult? What types of accommodations for him personally would you be looking for? What are some ideas you can give parents as like accommodations for college, for example?
Um, it really depends, and you have to be. I know parents think really highly of their kids, but you have to sit down and be honest with yourself. What can your kid really do? Can they, because college, if you send them to college, it's basically they're independent, they're on their own because they're going to have to do everything themselves. They do not have to report to you. That's it. They don't have to share anything with their parent. Remember, that's the one thing parents have to remember. It does not matter if they're autistic. They don't have to report anything to you financially, grade wise. That's it. So if you're going to send them to regular college, can your kid do this? Because
Mm.
on a regular campus, it's just for student accessibility. It is not autistic specific. If you feel like they can do the college work, but they're not real good with money and the financial aid is real complicated, you might want to have like a power of attorney over their finances.
Mm.
So you
Great.
have a leg to step on because it it can get real hairy.
Mm.
So if you're like, oh, my kid is not, we need a little bit more specifics for him, then I would check out um, the ones that have the autism specific accessibilities. Is going to be more expensive, or a transition program
Mm.
like CIP. And that way they can go and transition to a 2 year or a 4 year, but they're better prepared
Mm.
and they can get those supports because they are trained specifically for autistic adults.
I love that.
And you just have to be realistic. Does your kid actually like school? Is it what they want? Or do they just want to get a job and be like, Mom, I hate school. This sucks.
Mm.
You just have to know what path they want. If they want to
Mm.
make money, if they say they love video games,
Mhm.
and that's what they want to do, because it's coming, because that's what they love. Don't knock it.
Yeah.
They may have fine motor skills, because I thought my somebody told me just because they love it doesn't mean they can't find a skill in it. So if they love it, ask them why they love it. They may have a skill in it that we're not seeing.
Mm.
So I
Smart.
interviewed someone who was a career coach. They said it might be they have skills in fine motor and catching detail, or
Mm.
they like the socialization. So they could go and be somewhere in hotel management. He taught me things outside the box that what a video game can do
That's so
can
cool.
translate into a career. And I was like, well, I feel silly. I should have sent my kid to you. But
I love that. Oh, and that's why I am a huge proponent of finding those strengths and those passions and building on them. I have and just recently done an event where it was called the 1 in 36 Mix Virtual Autism Summit. I wish we would have talked before that and I would have been able to invite you there. But we had employment trainers and tradespeople on that work with autistic individuals and occupational therapists as well. And, just wonderful service providers and opportunities. So maybe I'll throw some of those links in the show notes for this so that we can, anybody that, wants it or needs it can go down and look at those things. Because there are so many great, the college preparation program that or internship program that you had talked about, that's wonderful resources for people. And I think that, holding, well, for me, I would love to start holding events in my local community so that I can build a little bit more in present community here, for him to have these opportunities in the future. And, online, just like you and I are both doing, I just want to keep educating, keep getting the word out that the numbers especially will change in 2025. We'll see a huge increase again, and people will act shocked, and that's fine. But the truth of the matter is that the action needs to start taking place in the legislation, in the regulations, in insurance,
Right.
all these important places where our community and our community leaders really need to step up and see that the majority of their people that live in their community need these supports.
Right. And it doesn't stop after 12th grade. And it doesn't stop after 21.
Yep.
They may need more assistance a little bit later. It
Yeah.
They still need a little bit more help past their peers.
Yeah.
They get this in school where, they have all these accommodations because they know, okay, we know they're going to be a little bit behind their peers. What makes you think that changes after 21? They
Yeah.
magically just, they're caught up. I
Yeah.
can tell you that's a no. My kid
Absolutely.
still has not learned to drive yet.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
does
But
he
it's
does he want to?
not really, but weird. I'm like, listen here, I'm not trying to chauffeur you until the day I die.
Well, and especially if he wants to go places. There's a difference
Right,
between wanting to learn to just know how to do it and then really needing it as a skill or as something that you need in your life. Like, yeah, I completely agree with that. My daughter, she's 12, she needs to learn how to do some cleaning because this mom is not going to follow her into her future
right,
relationships and households, and she gonna be slob. She better figure it out. And so she's gonna learn how to get her elbows down. She got to learn how to get a little dirty sometimes and help figure those things out. So yeah, we really have to install some things in our kids that sometimes might seem repetitive or that might seem maybe to outsiders immature or silly or anything, but really just do what you need to do for your own kiddo based on your own family values and your own decisions within your family, because
right.
that's where all the support is lying, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I do agree with you on that parent coaching. That is a big part, and that needs to be better accessible for parents to get this understanding and knowledge.
Yeah, it it's so hard to get all. It's so much information, and it changes so fast because of so much research that comes out. And then our legislature is like so behind. And I'm like, you guys need to step it up. This is so old.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we
Mhm.
definitely need to see those things happen. So I mean, at this point, you and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to keep educating, keep putting out, the information, keep helping parents. Please reach out to April at Adulting with Autism podcast if you have a story you might want to share with her, or if you need resources or have questions about what can be done, or what maybe accommodations that you can look for as an adult with autism, or a parent with an autistic adult, however you'd like to do that.
Full of
Tell us.
information.
Yay. Tell us your socials and where we can go to find out all of the good stuff.
You can go on Facebook. I'm under Adulting with Autism podcast. And also you can go under the adultingwithautism.com. And I have t-shirts if you want to buy t-shirts, because my ultimate goal is to start a foundation for young adults with autism. So once they hit that 21-year-old age, that if they need anything to help with housing, mentorship, coaching, you name it, they can have it.
Love it.
So, and if they want to go to college and those autism supports are real expensive, then they won't have to worry about it. They shouldn't have to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, April. It's been such a pleasure. I'm really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to staying in touch. I know that we're going to need to do some collaborating in the future for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
Yeah, it was such a nice conversation. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.